Amir, what's going on? Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. We've been chatting through every single channel except their video. So it's the first time. It's good to be here.
Yep. You were an early member of our Slack community, and we connected there. And then we have some mutual friends as well. And I've been seeing you all over X and within the community talking a lot about Cursor. So I'm excited to dig into that with you.
Likewise, yeah, I've been following vibe marketing. I think you've been the natural leader of the progression of this community and sort of showing what's possible with Claude and NAN and MCPs. And I'm excited to kind of show you an extension of that, what you can do with Cursor and how vibe marketing and vibe coding can kind of vibe co-vibe together.
Yeah, like I think that's an interesting point that you make there, like co-vibing. Um, there's this kind of convergence that is apparent out there between building and marketing, and Cursor seems to be like almost like a natural interface or place where that kind of magic can happen.
Exactly. I think what we're seeing is a natural progression where AI and tools like Cursor have lowered the barrier of entry to vibe coding, and now we're seeing tools like NAN, Claude, and MCPs doing the same for vibe marketing. So I'm curious
Yep.
to see how we evolve over time and use these tools to do both at the same time. And we're going to see, we used to say before the 10x engineer or the 10x marketer or the 10x employee, and we're going to see the 10x vibe coder, vibe marketer very, very soon.
Yeah, I think at some point we're all just gonna be vibing. The 10x Viber.
Exactly. Yeah. You're just going to be hiring vibe employees. They're going to come in, they're going to be vibe marketing for you, vibe coding for you, vibe building. So I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. So you have a technical background, is that right?
Yeah, and I would say, I had a technical background, more of a design engineer background, and because of ChatGPT and AI, I was able to kind of get into vibe coding, and for the past 2 years, become a full stack engineer.
Awesome. And so I'm non-technical. I rely heavily on, Claude or ChatGPT whenever I run into like a technical roadblock or whatever. I downloaded Cursor once and I opened it up and I was like, this feels a little like scary to me. So I haven't opened it up since. So I'm hoping that today you can sort of like demystify it a little bit, show me around, help me get a little bit comfortable with it, and then give us some like vibe marketing use cases that you're working on.
Absolutely. So I think what we're seeing is tools like Replit, Lovable, and Bolt, taking that kind of fear away of wanting to get into these interfaces that seem a little bit complex. And I think naturally we're going to have a progression where a lot of these people that are building with Replit, Lovable, Claude are going to move to Cursor at some point. And Cursor is not only going to be a tool for coding, but also the tool for you to do both marketing in there as well.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, give me a rundown on Cursor, like the vibe marketing rundown. So I've got a little bit of familiarity with code and stuff. I use Replit a lot, but yeah, would love to get a lay of the land here.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I just have a simple markdown I'll open up and I'll just walk you through it, and then we're going to jump right into Cursor. I think the best we can do is just apply what we know and what we're going to talk about and run through at the same time. So yeah, I'll talk about Cursor, overview to MCPs and how you can use it to vibe market. If you are familiar with Claude and MCPs, this is going to be quite similar to you in terms of just the topics I'm going to cover. And also just talk about Cursor and how it compares with NAN or Make or other tools across the landscape. And I touched about this earlier, but the natural progression we're going to see, or what we're seeing already, is a lot of people starting with Replit, starting with Lovable, building their MVPs or marketing in there, and then naturally going into Cursor to take them the next step. And I think that it's a natural evolution over time as people are getting more familiar with these tools to get introduced to these more complex tools that just expand their workflows.
Yep.
My thesis on this is I think Cursor is going to become the interface for everything. We're going to see, what's interesting is the team at Cursor has built this as a tool for marketing, but how other people use this to actually expand their use cases. And with the introduction of MCPs, they've essentially opened the door to everyone from all backgrounds, from marketing, product design, to start building tools around it within Cursor itself. So I use it as I say it's an interface to my life and it's an interface to everything that I do.
Interesting. So it's not just a developer's IDE that has, an agent inside. This is allowing you to do other things besides, build software or whatnot. So you can build software and then you can market your software. You can build micro tools for, maybe specific workflows or things that you want to automate, which is really cool. And it sounds like MCP is really like a huge unlock to extend the capability of Cursor. So maybe just give people a quick idea around what that means with MCPs within Cursor.
100%. So I think great articulation of that. And I think what I would add on to that is MCPs was something that was introduced by Anthropic, and it was something that integrated within Claude itself. And it just stands for Model Context Protocol. And to simplify it, it's just another term for APIs. How we typically had was, applications would interface with APIs to extract, pull, push, or update data. MCP is no different from that. It's just an API for these language models, large language models, to be able to interface with other data sets, to pull data, push data, and make these changes, all within your within the conversational window you have with the LLMs. And what it's done is it's enabled these agents to now access these APIs within the context of the window itself of these conversations without you having to build custom tools to be able to interact with these APIs. So it's just a new language standard.
You know what's interesting to me, and this may be a little bit of a hot take, but since I started messing around with MCPs, I see in the future the death of workflows.
That could be a possibility. I mean, definitely, right? And with the introduction of background agents and a lot of these agentic workflows that can automate themselves, uh, I would see it's a natural evolution where we're going to have human in the loop interactions with existing workflows to then having background agents that are just running these tasks for you, and you're
Right.
just monitoring and optimizing for it.
Right. Like yesterday, I did a very quick video around MCPs in Claude. And, before I discovered MCPs, maybe I would have built a N8N workflow where I go and like scrape Twitter and then I get all the replies and stuff in like a Google Sheet or Airtable or something like that. And then, I can have an AI node that maybe like repurposes that content or gives me insights or something. But there's a lot of steps and a lot of friction there. When
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get that within Claude, I was able to understand the replies to this tweet, get insights super quick, and do something with it. So the idea here that MCPs are powering these like really powerful closed loops where you go from insight to action in one interface without the need for all these different steps that induce a lot of friction, I think is just like kind of a mind-opening moment lately that I've had.
You're really good at articulating things that I have in my head, and that's a great way to put it. To be honest, like I think you nailed it with closed loops, all within one context. Like that's exactly it,
Yeah.
right? With NAN, with Make.com, with Zapier, you still have to piece things together, and you can't do it all in one synchronous flow. It's not as
Yeah.
cohesive. Where
Yeah.
with this, you're getting exactly that all in one.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's dig in. Show us what you got.
Let's do it. So, just a quick introduction. We talked about MCPs and what they are. Um, the number one question I always get is, where do I find MCPs and how do I install them? So you can find MCPs on websites like Smithery, cursory.directory, and a bunch of different websites. You can just do a search for MCPs marketplace, and they have specific instructions on how to integrate MCPs with Claude or Cursor. I'm not going to go into that, but the instructions are quite simple. Once you get the instructions, you're able to add MCPs directly through the settings. So you go to General and then click on MCP. And in here, I have essentially 3 MCPs set up that I use the most. These are the global MCPs, but you can also do project level MCPs. The difference between that is the global level is basically you're saying, I want these tools to be accessible across all of my Cursor projects. These are the folders that you have. So I have Firecrawl, which is for scraping content, Perplexity Ask, which is for search, and then Playwright, which is a agentic browser. So I use that for a lot of QA screenshots and getting an agent to actually open the browser and test something for me.
Hmm.
At a project level, you can integrate MCPs. So for example, I have a project where I have both a Stripe MCP and my database Supabase MCP, and I'm able to directly query, call, update, and change payment methods, payment links, call for subscription updates, or even make changes to my database, all within within the chat context.
Wow.
So yeah, uh, hopefully that covers what MCPs are and how you can how you can install it. What we'll do now is what I want to do is actually just go through 3 use cases in terms of how I could use MCPs, or how I currently do use MCPs to create content, crawl links to boost SEO with internal linking, and then build micro tools for SEO strategy. I'll stop there. Any questions, comments?
That sounds really good. I think that this is a perfect use case for Vibe marketing as well. So really excited to see how you're able to do that. Yeah, let's check out some use cases.
Awesome. So one of the benefits of Cursor is that it comes with kind of 3 modes: agent, ask, and manual, and they also have the new background agents. But you're also able to create custom modes. I use this quite a lot. I have 5 actually. I have a PRD generator, a deep researcher, a marketing expert, growth UX engineer, and a feature simulator. And what they really are just basically pre-configured settings on models and prompts on how you want the agent to behave. So I have a PRD generator that generates product requirements documentation, and it's prompted in a way to give me a very detailed breakdown of building a product backlog or product requirements document. This is really key for me because I don't approach any sort of build from a live coding standpoint without first getting a PRD in place. So I just want to share some context in terms of like how the custom modes play a big part in Cursor, and kind of the contrast you might see in Claude, where you have project level settings instead of agent level settings.
Yeah, I do. I'm a very basic vibe coder, I guess you could say, but I do the same thing with Replit. So I'll go and use Gemini, which I see you have here, or I'll use
Mhm.
Manus to generate like a PRD or a roadmap, and then I'll go and just paste that into Replit, and then I'll let Replit get to work. And I've found that that makes me a lot more efficient. It reduces the number of back and forth steps that I have to go through to get that sort of like workable prototype or whatnot. So I think what's really cool about this feature is I see you have Gemini for your PRD generator. I've seen a lot
Mhm.
of developers talk about how good Gemini is for generating those PRDs. Now I'm assuming that when you have other tasks, you can use other agents that maybe excel at those certain jobs or roles.
Absolutely. I think the general consensus is that you want to use these large, complex thinking models like O3 and Gemini 2.5 to help you work through an implementation plan, an approach on how to solve a specific problem, and then switching to more of a task-based agent that doesn't require extended thinking. So maybe 3.5 or 3.7 sonnets, and get them to actually execute on that plan. I've seen that work really effectively when it comes to building out implementation plans, thinking through an approach to how to actually solve through something, or just fixing a specific bug. Um, get one to plan for you, and then the other to execute. And that's where it gets interesting into the intersection of orchestration. You're the human supervisor, and you're supervising these agents on what to do.
Yeah, and that's like that's been a big unlock for me within like workflows as well. Just setting up the right LLMs for the right task. So within 8 in like an SEO workflow, I might have I don't know, Grok do some research for me or something like that. Then I might have like an open AI model to sort of consolidate the research and give me some actionable things to do, and then maybe I'll have Claude 3.7 or whatever actually be my like brief and content generator or something like that. And when you split these out and you're not thinking just static around like one model, your results of what you're able to produce like go out the roof compared to just using one for everything.
Exactly. And it ties back to kind of Anthropic and their original article on building effective agents, right? They talked about, instead of multi-chaining multiple agents, have one to do one specific task. And then you as a human, we call it human in the loop, or you're just supervising that process and making sure that the right agents are assigned to the right task with the right model and configuration. So spot on. I think, yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Okay, cool. So what's next? What do you do here?
So we're gonna do some research to get some content ideas and scrape as much data as we can about the best A/B testing tools for 2025. So I want to understand the landscape. Okay, like um, what are the tools out there, and then use that as a basis to start creating an article around that topic. So what I usually do is I write down the topic in a document like this, and then I'll create a new file. I'll call it article research.md, and what I'll do is I'll tag the agent to say, look at this specific topic, and I'll change the custom mode called marketing expert. It's Claude 3.7, and it has its own custom configuration. So a custom prompt that says, look at this specific, task, think through the task, look for these specific topics, and perform a set of actions focused around content marketing. So I would say, look at this document and the task for A/B testing tools in 2025. Conduct research and find relevant tools that help you run A/B tests for your website. Now, I personally, you don't have to do this, but I always say like run the specific MCP that I want to run. I think it confirms that they're actually going to run the MCP. So I have Perplexity and Firecrawl. So what I'll do is say run Perplexity MCP and Firecrawl MCP to get the data you need, and put your output in article research. So what we're going to see here now is the agent is going to be using MCPs. It's going to be looking at the topic and then use an MCP tool, in this case, Perplexity Ask, and running a query on finding the best A/B testing tools in 2025 for your website.
Yep. And again, just like integrating those MCPs seemed super easy as well. Like there's no complicated setup or whatever. Perplexity already has like an MCP integration that you can just simply add in here to your cursor environment. So there's no like figuring out how to configure some sort of like MCP server on the back end or whatnot to get it into here, right? It's a pretty simple process.
Exactly. So all you have is essentially you would have to just create a developer account in Perplexity, get your API key, and then go to their existing GitHub documentation that tells you how to actually install it, or you can go to Smithery or any other directory, and they have exactly step by step. They'll tell you, oh, okay, like just put your API key, and then we're going to give you the configuration for you to run to set up these MCPs. So my primary like MCPs that you saw were Playwright, Perplexity, and Firecrawl. I just use them so much. It's insane to think about like, how these three small tools have just drastically changed my workflow. So what we're seeing right now is we saw the query. Now we're seeing Firecrawl doing a scrape as well, and it's checking as well, and finding emerging tools in this space. And it's going to consolidate all this and hopefully put this out in this new file that we created. Now, with models, they're changing so much. Tool calls, so specifically how the model calls these MCPs or make these edits, they're always refining. So sometimes you may see that it may not work the first try, and you might have to change the model or keep trying to get the result that you need, and that's just a natural process.
That's part of vibing,
Exactly.
Hey, try again, do it better.
Try harder. My life depends on it.
Exactly. I actually watched Sergey Brin was on a All In podcast, the co-founder of Google, and he said something really, really interesting. He was like, if you threaten models with physical violence, they will perform better. I don't know if he was joking or if he was serious, but I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I've seen some like articles and things pop up around like sort of the foundational, like, I don't know, prompting behind some of the agents that are out there. And they've got some really like unique sort of guidelines like that as well. So
yeah, I've seen the system prompts of some of these models, and it's so interesting to see how they build some of these safeguards or try to build some direction around how they want to think.
right.
I'm curious to know in your process, right? You're a power user when it comes to Claude and Innate. Based on your initial reactions, what would you say is the biggest stark difference between what I'm doing in Cursor and what you would do in Claude or Innate?
Yeah, I think that I think that, since I'm not a developer, like some of the small nuances like .md, okay, that's a markdown file, which is essentially just like a document, I guess, right? So I think just for me, it would be understanding sort of those small nuances and then just kind of like finding where I can do this here.
Mhm.
uh, so, I guess after this tutorial, I'll probably be going back to Cursor and just trying something like this out. But I do like the fact that this is consolidated in one area. Also, it looks like the process of setting up the MCPs is a lot easier than the process I'm using today, which is like integrating an N8N workflow into my Claude desktop.
Mhm.
And sometimes that breaks, sometimes it's not super efficient. So this looks like an easier sort of hub to get all that working and go from 0 to 1.
Exactly. And I'll go back to your earlier point you made about the closed loop. I think this is truly that closed loop system where you're able to get everything all at one. And once you have the setup, it's a lot easier to do. So, um, yeah, perfect. What we're seeing right now is a comprehensive research document based on these MCPs. So we went through Firecrawl, Perplexity. We've done a Firecrawl deep research. So went through a set of 30 URLs, pulled a bunch of relevant data, and it consolidated this into a document that we can then use as a basis for research. So we have some of the key tools that I'm quite familiar with. So I can kind of take a second glance and say, okay, you know what, this is actually accurate and it's not hallucinating. And
Yeah,
the most important thing here is also, I would say, that it's data that is pulled from these MCPs. So it's
yeah.
not a model using contextual data that's been trained on to pull into this that's relevant.
Right. And that's a big roadblock for a lot of people, especially like in marketing. They'll open up like ChatGPT and they'll try to do something like this. And then when they don't get like a super relevant response right away, they're like, AI slop, or this isn't going to work for my brand or whatever. But they're not using the tools that are going to get like the most relevant things like produced and in here for you. Like, so people give up before they try something like this that can really give you a totally different result.
Exactly. Now, I don't know if you like notice, but one thing that's interesting with the prompting that I've done is it's almost like the extended self-thinking on top of the existing model. So typically, you have the task, you prompt it, and it gives you the output. This is almost self-improvement, self-improving. So it gave you the initial output on the article research, and now it's saying, okay, let me revise this one more time. Let me add a comparison table. Let me enhance this. So it's just essentially an extension of the extended thinking based on the way I prompt it with the MCPs. So now we
Uh-huh.
have a very, very comprehensive article that gives you a summary, the top two recommendations, a table breakdown. So this is all in Markdown, and then an overview of each individual tool and how they compare with one another. And this is quite extensive. I mean, it's about 598 lines. Like it's pretty. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big in-depth article. Yeah.
And like you said, it looks super relevant. So I'm familiar with a lot of these tools here. When I've tried to ask just like ChatGPT, hey, go find me like, marketing tools or something like that, I get a lot of garbage out of the gate. So like what I'm seeing here is just super, super relevant to, the use case that you're doing, which is just a huge improvement out of the gate.
Exactly. And so what you can also do is uh, you can, the natural question would be, oh, okay, so what do I do next? Where do I take this? You
Yeah.
can copy this article and paste it into your existing CMS, whether you're using Webflow, Framer, or custom site, or a lot of these tools now, like Webflow, they have an MCP that supports this. So naturally, what I would do if I had a Webflow site is I would connect to the Webflow MCP and directly publish this article.
Yeah.
Where it
Yeah.
gets interesting is, say, for example, you want to do programmatic SEO. So you want to create 25 to 50 pages at once, where I want to do a comparison article, but I want to do it for my tool versus 50 other tools. I can create a template and then create all these 50 articles in Cursor and then use a Webflow MCP to publish all of them all at once without manually importing it over.
That's incredible. Like I've done a lot of programmatic SEO stuff back in the day that is very manual. It's a pain. So just having the ability to like, get all this highly relevant information with that closed loop for programmatic pages is awesome. And, a lot of people ask me like, hey, where should I start with marketing and stuff for my app or my
Mhm.
SaaS? And I'm like, go find where, there is existing demand and, build your marketing strategy around that. So, SEO or this sort of like intent based discovery is the best way to start as well. So, like, finding these programmatic opportunities is like a customer acquisition cheat code.
Spot on. Yeah, you're the expert here. You're a lot better articulating than I am. But I would just add on to that in terms of how you can actually apply that is um, how I personally apply this, which is I use a lot of content templates. I've actually used the LLMs to help me guide through a process of creating templates for how I
Mm.
want to do my research and create articles. So what typically you would see on my app and their blog and the blog that I have is um, product comparison templates, a problem solution template, or a best competitor alternative template. And what you can do as part of this process is I can now prompt the LLM to say, hey, looking at this template, competitor alternatives or industry trend insights, revise the article to that format. And then,
Yep.
to your point, if you're doing programmatic, you can do this, for 25 different tools all at once. And here's
This
an
is
example of what that looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, please. Just a quick note. This is really, really smart because the way most people are approaching programmatic SEO in a basic sense today is they're going out and generating a bunch of informational blog posts. They're throwing it on their site, and then there's not a lot of like value that content's actually adding to the user or the person searching for information. They get slapped with a penalty from Google or something like that, and they're like, man, AI and SEO doesn't work. But like, if you're solving real problems and you're providing highly relevant information, and you're formatting it in different ways based on where that like customer is in their journey, like maybe like you have an informational thing around like what are A/B testing tools, and then you have like a discovery layer, which is like, let's compare A/B testing tools. And then you have a product comparison specifically with your product versus like Optimizely or something like that. Like, you're really providing a heck of a lot of value to the person that is finding this information out there, which is totally different than how most people are approaching this kind of thing.
Exactly. And you have to work backwards. Is the intent behind the person that's coming to your site commercial, transactional, or informational, right? Are they looking for information? Are they in the commercial phase where they're comparing, or are they no, they're ready to buy and they're completely transactional? So um, that's how I like to frame my thinking around it. And what I would do is, yeah, like just look at these content templates, and they're pretty much the basis for a lot of the content that we have around
Mhm.
commercial, informational, or transactional type of buyers, and then we create specific tools for that. So specific articles and content for that. So these are some examples of like comparisons. Now you can take it a step further, and what I will do is, say for example, I have my own tool, and I want to add additional context to this article. I have an LLM.txt file. So my tool is called Humblelytics. And I have an LLM.txt file that just provides a complete overview of what my app is and what it does, what the features are, how much it costs, our value proposition, our USP. And then I use that as an additional layer. So if I wanted to, for example, I can bring this in here and say, okay, based on this article research and the LLM that provides you, tell me how Humblelytics compares to this and add it to the article.
Yep.
And an extension of that is I've done keyword research. So I go into SEMrush. I do think I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't MCPs for data for SEO or like SEMrush or any sort of SEO keyword gathering tool. But I've just done an export. I've exported all the big keywords that I think are a fit for me around keyword difficulty, volume, and search intent. If these numbers don't make sense, I think like it's okay. If people see this and they're like, "Oh, what are all these numbers?" It's just a table. It's just
Yep.
badly formatted. But the LLMs understand this, and these are basically just contextual data on keywords. So I could go back in here and say, um, based on the context of LLM.text and the keywords, keyword data, update article research. So what
Mm-hmm.
it's going to do is it's going to take the context I've provided, all the keywords, and then it's going to now update the article with the specific keyword density and the SEO words that you want to incorporate. So like I want to incorporate more of A/B testing, left flow, and user behavior, and that's what I want to start ranking towards.
Yeah, that's incredible. Another just big unlock for me personally with MCPs was this was kind of the first time that I really saw the ability to add a lot of context into the model easily and just directly see the payoff from it. So like you have a lot of context here. You have information about your product, you have keywords, you have competitor research, you have these article templates, and you're really unlocking the power of AI here. It's
Yeah,
super cool.
and it gets really interesting, right? You have a lot more. So before a lot of these LLM models used to have RAG incorporated into it so that you can pull in more context. What we're seeing now is a lot of these models have a lot much larger context windows, especially the Gemini models, where you don't need to actually use RAG to retrieve data anymore. You can just inject everything into the context window, into the system prompt. And what we're seeing a lot of times now with a lot of applications is that they're getting rid of RAG completely, and they have supervisor agents that will call in specialized agents with their long context window. So like one Gemini model is going to call 5 different Gemini models, and they each all have context on whatever the topic is, and you're completely getting rid of the need for RAG.
Mm,
So yeah, so we are now, so it added Humbalytics as a comparison. So like selfishly, I want to promote Humbalytics, so I'm going to add my article into there,
yep.
and then also I have my keywords in there as well. So you're getting an article that is optimized for your keywords with additional context on your tool and how it compares with everything else.
Awesome. Are you so just this we can tackle this a little bit later too, but just out of curiosity, there's a lot of conversation around getting discovered within LLMs. And not just, like Google or Bing search or whatnot. And I kind of struggle to see how optimizing for LLM discovery is any different from really kind of like optimizing for SEO.
Exactly. There is, because there is no difference, because LLMs have to still scrape from
Yeah.
these pages, and they're trained on that context. You do want to optimize for Bing. I think that's just a partnership OpenAI has with Microsoft on Bing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the pre-trained context, and as long as you're optimizing on Reddit, Bing, and having more content, you're gonna show up in search. And we're seeing that now. I look at a lot of my traffic data and I'm saying, oh wow, like I'm getting a lot of leads from ChatGPT.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. There's some nuances. Like I think that being multi-format. So, when you have these articles, like how can you repurpose it into other, media or whatever, to benefit from how, LLMs or Google's algorithms prioritize UGC,
Hmm.
or YouTube videos or whatever. That's a big opportunity. Like something that I talk about with our workflows a lot is, the way you started this is you found the demand and then you're creating an article. That's just one thing that you can create from the insights and the research that you've done here. You could
Exactly.
repurpose that for multiple channels and tap into all kinds of other opportunities as well.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you generated an article. Now show us sort of like the closed loop aspect of this. So what's next after you have this in a markdown file? Like, are you going in and are you doing some human in the loop review or editing, or are you just going and like pushing this onto your site?
It depends on your comfort level, right? Like where, and I would say, you know, the ultimately the goal is you should be a subject matter expert and be able to quickly call out the topics and the points that are being mentioned, especially when we're talking about tool comparisons and we're talking about pricing. You don't want to have inaccurate data around what other features other tools have and the price points on that. I think it's just going to poorly reflect on you, and you're going to get penalized for that.
Yeah.
So what I would do as a human in the loop process is go through this in depth, ensure the price points are accurate, ensure the features are accurate, and then just make sure that I've done a pass through around, does this make sense? Am I, you know, focusing on the right keywords and the messaging on the intent of the person that's reading this, whether it's commercial or informational, and um, and yeah, just make sure that there is no hallucination. I would say the risk for this is a lot lower because you're pulling in relevant context from Perplexity and Firecrawl. Other than that, I would take this and um, copy it as a markdown and put it into Webflow, put it into Framer, and
Yep.
like I mentioned earlier, if you have an MCP, you can just directly connect to your CMS and publish it all in there. I don't have a Webflow MCP. That's not what I use, but you can do that if you wanted to. And I've done that before for other projects as well, where it's like directly just mass publishing onto a site.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. And you are getting like customers and traffic and all kinds of stuff from the strategy that you're showing us right here.
Exactly, exactly. I keep an eye on the keywords, and I keep track on essentially, um, what where our users are coming from, what are the keywords that I want to be ranking for, and it's a tactic that's working quite well for me. So this is just an HTML preview of an example article and how it works. So I just took the article and I said, hey, create an HTML version of this. As you can see, it has a table format, introduction, all the different tool options, pricing comparison. This is for a different article, but I want to kind of show an example of what that looks like,
Yep.
and then also the sources as well listed.
Really cool. And if you wanted to add in some, advanced kind of, traffic or SEO type things like internal linking or whatever, you can do that as well.
That's the next task we're gonna work on. So this is where the fun stuff gets started with being able to automate internal linking SEO. So naturally, you've gone through doing research, you created an article, now you published it, and you want to look at opportunities to do some internal linking to build authority for one page by anchoring text and link to another. And we're gonna cover that in this instance here. So what I will do is go back into here. So we've gone ahead and created content. So this is done. And now I want to start uh, linking articles within one another. So what I would do is, just to give an example, I'm going to show you what that really means. So I'm going to just open up a browser here. So I
Mm-hmm.
have a website, and I have a bunch of guides, and I want to, for example, find opportunities where I can link this article with another article in here, for example. There's a lot of tools out there. They're great. That what they do is they essentially build a sitemap of your entire website, scrape the content, and find internal linking opportunities. We're not paying for those. We're gonna get all that done in Cursor today. So what you're gonna do is
In
is
true vibe coding and vibe marketing fashion, I like it.
exactly, yeah. How do we save some money here? But don't get me wrong, those tools are great, and I'm they're specialized and serve a great purpose. But we're gonna do this all in one closed loop. So what I would do is I would prompt the agent in this instance to use Firecrawl um, to build a sitemap of uh, of my website's guides. And so let me just um, get the link for guides and pull it in here. Okay, guides. I want you to build out a sitemap, crawl through 10 articles on there, and scrape the content and come back with 10 internal linking opportunities. Be specific about which article should link to the other, and provide content snippets. And then internal linking.md, and add it to internal linking.md. So what we've done here is prompt the agent to essentially say, I want you to go to the specific URL using Firecrawl, build out a sitemap, list out 10 articles, scrape the content of those articles, understand the context between each different content, and then using your expertise, find opportunities to link one article to another. So what we're seeing right now is the MCP is going to my guide section. It's pulled out all these different links. It's scraping all the content for each individual one. It's going through each individual article. And then hopefully by the end of this, it's going to come back with a breakdown of internal linking opportunities.
Amazing. That's really cool. Especially
Cool.
if you have like a big website, or like another tactic is sort of like I was looking at some insights from Google's big event, and they said that one area that you can dig into to rank in today's world is updating older content and keeping it fresh or whatnot. So using these tools to do that at scale, if you have a big website or a lot of older stuff, like that also seems like a big unlock. To update it with recent research, to update the internal linking or whatever, rather than doing that manually or paying an SEO agency a bunch of money to do it for you. You can simply use a tool like this.
Exactly. Maintenance is a big part of SEO, right? You're looking at existing content, where the position ranking is and what keywords it's ranking for,
Yep.
and seeing when the last time you updated it. So what I do a lot is I'm in Ahrefs or SEMrush. I'm looking at the position ranking of all my pages and saying, okay, cool, what's went up, what's gone up, what's gone down, and doubling down on it. And a lot of times I'm like, oh, wow, this is like outdated content from 2024 or 2023. I'll scrape all those links. I'll scrape all the content and say, okay, make some recommendations based on the previous, workflow we went through, and update the article for me. So
Yep.
we're going through a bunch of guides right now, and a bunch of articles and guides where we pull the contents, and now we're going to be hopefully getting an output of recommendations on where. Oh, perfect! There we go. So what we have now is a full breakdown of 10 articles. Basically, we have a guide, mastering A/B split testing with practical guides and examples, and it's saying you should link this article to the Humblelytics A/B test and split test sample size calculator, and link this specific snippet to that page.
Wow.
So you're
That's
getting a
all.
full breakdown. Yeah. So you're getting a full breakdown of what you should do. So what I would do is go back into my CMS, open up that specific article. So in this instance, we have the guide with examples, and I'm just gonna share this page here.
And like you said,
And
maybe if you have like a Webflow MCP at some point or whatever, it's even easier to do so, and you don't even have to go and log into your CMS separately.
exactly. So I think it said before launching, or somewhere in here. I have to look back at the snippet, but it says over here essentially what you can do is take one of the texts here and then link it to a calculator that we have on our page as well.
Yep.
So we have a sample size calculator. So it's giving you the direct snippet that you should be using to paste into the for one article to another.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing I've been thinking about lately with programmatic SEO or with these sort of like content pages is tools and calculators and lead magnets. So, matching the intent of that visitor. So if someone is in that discovery phase and they're comparing platforms, maybe you have an email guide or an email course for like how to approach your first A/B test or something like that. And you're adding value and you're capturing that person on that piece of content with that lead magnet, and then you can drive them to conversion through a drip sequence or something in your email automation tool.
Exactly. That's exactly. You can really take a lot of this content that we've gathered here in the strategy around the linking and build a very cohesive flow. And it
Yeah.
all comes down to that ICP and the buyer journey is a commercial, informational, and build out user flow, build out drip campaigns to serve that exact need.
Yeah. Another thing I like about how you're approaching vibe marketing here is that the logic and the strategy that you have is very, very sound and well thought through. And I think that, a lot of people out there are looking for, quick hacks and stuff like that, and maybe they get like a short-term boost or maybe nothing happens. And then again, they're like, this doesn't work or whatever. But like, your strategy, you clearly understand search and the buyer journey and stuff like that. And you're a real expert. And a tool like this is just 10xing your leverage and your efficiency and your output, you know? So I guess there's a
Exactly.
couple things to unpack there. One, like, this doesn't replace having the right strategy and the right logic and the right approach. If you have those things, this can take you to a whole other level.
Exactly. It's about speed, efficiency, and cost around and this is what it does. It 10x's you and enables you, and it augments that work, right?
Yep.
Cursor, Claude, a lot of them are just an extension of what you're doing and the output that you have. And I think at the end of the day, whether it's vibe coding or vibe marketers, you're still the architect. You still need to be able to articulate what you want to tell to the agents, what your outcome is, and being able to help approach them towards that, like approach the outcome that you're going towards. Um, and that's what you're seeing with vibe coding as well. It's you have a lot of novice people that are just building really quickly and skipping some steps around like helping the LM actually think through an implementation plan and how to approach it. And the same applies here, right? Just understanding what you're trying to do, who your end user is, and what you want to get out of this. And you're just the architect that's just piecing everything together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So what we've done so far is, and I think the interesting part here is like we've been doing this for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Naturally, this would have taken a week to do with an SEO, with an SEO agency or a content marketer. So
Oh,
we've done a lot.
it would have been, yeah, this would have been, if you tried to do this with a traditional agency or something like that, you're talking about thousands of dollars and a month or more worth of work.
Exactly. So, um, there's moving faster, your output's a lot higher, and you're saving a lot more money on this process. The
Yep.
last thing we want to do to tie this all together is we've created content, we found internal linking opportunities, and now it's like, how do we approach that top of funnel um, traffic that's going to come in and provide some free value to our end users? I'm a big advocate for micro tools. We have a tool for UTM link generator. It's a very competitive space, but anytime we rank on the first page, we get hundreds of thousands of traffic of clicks and impressions on there, and we're
Yep.
always competing on that. And in such an interesting space. So I think micro tools can be a big value add to build awareness and top of funnel visitors for whatever it is that you're trying to sell, whether it's a product or a service. So if you have an analytics tool, if you have an AI image generator tool, try to think about an extension of a free tool that you can offer to users as a way to upsell.
Yeah.
There's a company, V.io, the video editor.
Mm-hmm.
They're notorious for this. They have built a suite of micro tools. I think it's over 20, 30 tools that let you perform a very specific task, removing an image background, adding transcriptions. And it's a free tool that they offer to users and then use it as an upsell to sell their entire product suite.
It's really interesting. If the goal of a lead magnet or something like that is to add value, micro tools shortcut the time to value versus like an ebook or a guide or a downloadable resource, because with a download or whatnot, you're giving them a bunch of information, and then again the onus is on that lead or that user to go and turn it into something actionable. But with the tool, you're shortcutting the time to value, so you're able to add a lot more value to someone in a much shorter amount of time, which is going to do a lot of things to move them along that conversion path much quicker and bring revenue into your business.
Absolutely. And I would say if you're using an SEO tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs, just always ensure that you're looking at free, X tool, free YouTube thumbnail generator, free A/B split test calculator, free UTM link generator. That's going to have a huge impact on this. So what we're going to do is going to prompt the agent to say, study LLM.text, do research on humblex.com via Firecrawl, MCP, and then provide a recommendation on a list of top 5 micro tools to build and address the top of funnel users. And I've also provided some keyword data as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the outcome of this is that we're going to get a recommendation of 5 tools, and we're going to choose one of those. Ideally, in this process, you would look at keyword data and traffic to see what volume that specific long tail keyword has, and where it stands with keyword difficulty as well, and the CPC. So that's like a whole another topic on SEO and keyword difficulty and volume. I won't get into that, but idea that that's how it will complement that process when you're doing research on keyword data.
Yep.
So we're scraping the website, getting some context on what the tool is. We have an LLM.txt as well. And the agent is now going to create a list of 5 tools to address top of funnel.
Mm.
Okay. So it's doing research now. I'll say add it to, I'll stop right there. Actually, I'll say add it to, I forgot to prompt it to add it to the document here.
Yep. And then I assume, once you get these tool ideas, like as a vibe coder, you're not going and creating them out of your cursor environment here. You have the capability to just, close that loop again, and you
Exactly.
can build a tool and deploy it on your website that can start collecting emails and getting leads for you like right away, essentially.
Exactly. And so the next natural step here is look at micro tools. In this case, we're going to maybe just do a UTM campaign link builder. If I wanted to, I could say I could bring in my PRD generator and build an extensive PRD. Maybe for this, I'll show what it looks like. It's UTM link.prd, prd.mg. So what I'll do is I'll say build out a PRD of this UTM link builder. And it's going to create an extensive product requirement documentation on what that would look like.
Yep.
Kind of too. And the next natural step is that you would take this PRD and prompt the agent to then create a simple tool for you that you can add to your website. So you could add this to your framer site, your Webflow site, your custom site as just a code embed. And you can, I've seen you do this in Claude as well. It's a very similar approach.
Yep. So right now it's building out like a complete roadmap. And for this step, again, you're using like a specialized model. You're using Gemini 2.5 to do this PRD. And then you're going to take this PRD, and I'm assuming you can just reference that to the cursor agent and say, hey, go ahead and get started. Like, what does that even look like?
Exactly. So as a natural next step, I would take this PRD and then get the agent to build out a simple tool for that. What's interesting about this PRD generator specifically is based on the prompting is I want to think through a scope to build out an MVP scope and then the out of scope items that we want to build out later on. And then more importantly, just thinking about the user stories in the journey. We want to ensure that we're always thinking about the end user. And I think this is a natural theme of everything that we've done here, from research to internal linking to the buyer journey. We want to think about our end user and why they want to use something like this. And the PRD generator addresses that. We look at, say, with the small business owner, the junior marketer, and the freelance content creator. We're building this UTM tool for these 3 personas. And then we're also thinking through the flows. This is important context for the agent, so that as it's building through this tool, it has and keeps in mind all this relevant context on how to actually think through the user journey and the user stories.
Wow. So I guess like in your prompting, like you've got sort of these guidelines or guardrails around like who your ICP is, or maybe who we're building for, and that's helping to inform everything that you do from this chat.
Exactly, and this yeah, I love this PID generator because it's such a good foundation for a lot of agents to build. And the most important thing is like just the level of details that comes to breaking down the features they should be thinking through on the front end, on the back end, and then it breaks into subtasks. So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll use this PRD as the general requirements document to keep track of what's been done and what's not done, or what's next as progress, and have the agent have that as context and just continuously update that document.
Very cool.
So it's quite extensive. I'm just going to stop it right here because it's going to go forever. It's a very extensive document, but I'll just stop right here. I'll copy it. We're gonna drop that in here. So we have a very extensive PRD document.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do is, and for the purpose of just keeping things clean, I'll just say using this PRD, create a simple HTML, JS, CSS micro tool that I can deploy.
So, as you're doing this, do you have to spend much time sort of like debugging and things like that? Like, I'm assuming that this very extensive roadmap that you're providing the agent helps you to kind of get closer to one-shotting a tool or whatever. Is that fair to say? Like, do you still have to spend some time kind of like, fixing some errors and some bugs and testing and stuff, obviously? Like, just high level, what does that process kind of look like for you?
In the context of vibe marketing, not as much. You're going to
Yeah.
spending more time just reprompting and maybe just taking a different approach to how you're prompting, getting the output if it doesn't work. In the context of vibe building and vibe coding, absolutely. Deep planning, approaching a build, and debugging are the core components of it. Getting it to build is the easy part, but solving problems and thinking through how it should build it is the core the core aspect of vibe coding. In this specific instance of it just us building a very simple micro tool, you're not going to run into a lot of issues with debugging.
Got it. Cool.
Cool. So what we have now is a fully deployable tool that we're just going to deploy. And I'll show you an example right here. Perfect. So now we have a UTM link generator that you can use and embed. And obviously you would have create a page and add this tool as an embed in there. So say, for example, if we have a link, sort of Empire, for example, about, you would say Google, CPC, or whatever the link is. It could be example link. Yeah. You would just use the term, and then you have a generated UTM link that you can then create. This is relevant for marketers that are running CPC ad campaigns or whatever the case is, for them to use that link in their ads to then go back to the analytics software and attribute as to whether or not that ad is actually bringing them traffic.
Yeah, and like this is again super relevant to your product because your product helps people unpack where their conversions are coming from, and tagging your links with UTM parameters is how you're able to probably provide a lot of value to your customers. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Whether you're using Google Analytics, Humblelytics, whatever the analytics tool is, you can then see this UTM data specifically in your analytics tool and see where that traffic is coming from.
Awesome. So give people a sense of like what Humblelytics does, and what makes it unique, and sort of what's on your roadmap and where people can find more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been building this tool. It was honestly a tool I built for myself to address my own pain point, which was I get so caught up in Google Analytics. Sometimes too much data is no data at all, or not any good data at all. And the idea was, how do I build a simple analytics tool that lets me run experiments with A/B testing to increase conversions, to get funnel visualization the way I wanted to have very simple traffic and website data, and more importantly, be able to actually just understand what the data is telling me here and what I can do with it. So this tool aims to just address a lot of those issues and concerns around that. And I built the tool honestly for myself, and it just happens that people want to use it as well. And we power a lot of agencies and creators, and the goal for us is to enable a lot of marketers and performance marketers to just have the all-in-one conversion optimization tools for you to be able to test experiments, see funnels, and see whether or not your marketing efforts are actually working.
Very cool. So that's humblytics.com. And if people want to learn more about like Cursor and vibe coding and this whole convergence from you, like where can they follow you on the interwebs?
Amir MXC, Amir AMIR MXC, anywhere they can find me there.
Awesome. Well, this was incredible. We're hitting right at 60 minutes here, and this is just like jam-packed of value. I think I'm going to have to go back and watch this just to like unpack everything that you shared. This is just so much sauce, so much alpha, whatever you want to call it. And I think people are really going to enjoy it. So Amir, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with everybody.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me.
All right. We'll do it again. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks.